At a time when Korea was a struggling colony under Japanese rule, a young man from a privileged family made an unassuming move. He began selling noodles. No one then could have imagined that this modest trading company would one day dominate global electronics, shipbuilding, and telecommunications. This is the story of how Samsung, once a grocery business, became a tech empire shaping the modern world. Lee Byung-chul was born in 1910 in Uryong County, in Korea's South Gyeongsang Province, during a period of national turmoil. That same year, the Korean Empire was officially annexed by Japan, a colonization that would leave deep scars on Korean identity and economy for decades. Lee's family belonged to the Yongban class, the traditional landowning aristocracy of Joseon Korea, whose privileges largely remained intact under Japanese rule. Though his family represented a minor branch of the Lee clan, they still controlled significant landholdings and influence. Being the youngest of 4 siblings, Lee was raised in a household of means, but the world around him was anything but stable. As Japanese cultural assimilation efforts intensified, many Korean elites chose either complicity or resistance. Lee's family opted for survival through compliance, retaining their status in a colonized Korea. From an early age, Lee showed signs of ambition beyond managing ancestral land. He pursued his education at Seoul's prestigious Yungdong High School, and later moved to Japan to attend Waseda University in Tokyo. He never completed his studies, but the experience likely exposed him to Japanese economic strategies and trading systems, insights that would prove valuable later. Upon returning to Korea, Lee's next steps are cloaked in partial obscurity. What is known, however, is that he began managing his family's estates, all while witnessing Korea's increasing subjugation under foreign rule. The chaos of war, economic hardship, and cultural erasure were the backdrop to his formative years. But it wasn't long before Lee made a bold decision. Amidst colonial rule and looming conflict, he laid the foundation of his own business, not through land or politics, but commerce. In 1938, he established Samsung Trading Company in the city of Daegu. He chose the name Samsung, meaning 3 stars, a nod to Korean folklore in which a noble dragon fights evil, a metaphor, perhaps, for his own ambitions in turbulent times. When Lee Byung-chul opened Samsung Trading Company in 1938, the idea was simple: import and export basic foodstuffs, primarily noodles and dried fish. Based in Daegu, the modest business quickly tapped into an essential niche, supplying necessities to a population navigating colonial hardship. His timing, though perhaps coincidental, was impeccable. As the world edged toward global war, consumer demand in Korea and China shifted away from luxury items to essentials. Samsung Trading, by design, was in the right place at the right time. The business grew rapidly. What began as a small grocery trading outfit soon expanded into larger-scale logistics and distribution. By leveraging relationships and staying attuned to market needs, Lee built Samsung into a trusted supplier during wartime. His focus wasn't only on profit, it was survival through adaptability. After Japan's defeat in 1945 and Korea's subsequent liberation, Lee relocated Samsung's headquarters to Seoul in 1947, a move signaling ambition on a national scale. But just 3 years later, the Korean War broke out. North Korean troops surged into the south, capturing Seoul. Lee fled to Busan, taking with him what remained of his growing enterprise. Undeterred by war, Lee founded Chiljedong, a sugar refinery, in Busan, Samsung's first foray into manufacturing. In 1954, he followed it up with Chilmojik, a textile mill in Daegu. These moves were bold and visionary. Korea was in ruins, yet Lee believed industrialization was the only path to national and personal recovery. His ventures were not without conflict. Around this time, he partnered with Cho Hong-jae, a business ally who played a significant role in Samsung's expansion. But clashing philosophies on leadership and management soon led to a split. Their separation gave birth to entirely new conglomerates: Hyosung, Hankook Tire, and what would become today's Samsung Group. Despite the turbulence, Lee's early years in business made one thing clear: he had an extraordinary capacity to evolve. From trading noodles to building factories in a war-torn land, Lee Byung-chul wasn't just surviving history. He was quietly shaping the future of an industrial Korea. As Korea emerged from the devastation of war, the 1950s and 60s ushered in a new era, one marked by reconstruction, modernization, and industrial ambition. For Lee Byung-chul and Samsung, this was the beginning of a crucial transformation. No longer content with trading and light manufacturing, Lee began positioning Samsung at the forefront of Korea's industrial revolution. A key turning point was his alignment with the South Korean government under President Park Chung-hee. Park's administration was determined to rebuild the nation's economy and saw the solution in chaebols, large, family-owned conglomerates that could lead the industrial charge. Samsung, already growing rapidly, was perfectly poised to become one of them. Government policies were deliberately favorable. Tariff protections, easy credit lines, and financial shielding allowed Samsung to acquire new businesses with little foreign competition. With this backing, Lee moved swiftly. In the late 1950s, Samsung purchased several commercial banks, insurance companies, a cement plant, and a fertilizer manufacturer, laying the foundation for a vertically integrated industrial empire. This shift also sparked the grooming of Lee's third son, Lee Kuan-hee, for eventual succession. Lee Byung-chul began molding his heir with the same strategic precision he applied to his businesses, training him abroad, introducing him to Samsung's expanding operations, and preparing him to take the reins of a conglomerate that was now sprawling across multiple sectors. Meanwhile, Samsung's internal structure began to evolve. Lee had learned the value of diversification not just through success, but also through his early fallout with Cho Hong-jae. By ensuring that Samsung's ventures were intertwined yet individually resilient, he insulated the company from systemic risks, political, economic, or personal. By the end of the 1960s, Samsung had grown from a modest trading firm into a diversified industrial titan. The company now had its hands in finance, textiles, food processing, and chemicals, but something bigger loomed on the horizon: electronics. With every risk, Lee Byung-chul had proven his mettle. But the next phase of his journey would test his legacy like never before. In 1969, Lee Byung-chul made his most ambitious move yet. Samsung entered the electronics industry. It was a gamble. Korea had no real presence in this space, and Japanese brands like Sony and Panasonic dominated the market. But Lee believed that the future lay in technology, and he was determined to put Korea on the map. Samsung Electronics was born alongside several other specialized divisions: Samsung Corning, Samsung Electromechanics, and Samsung Semiconductor and Telecommunications. A strategic partnership with Japan Sanyo enabled the fledgling company to produce black and white televisions tailored for Korean consumers. These TV sets hit the market in 1970, and they were a hit. Not only were they locally made, but they also came at a time of rising national pride. Korean households, given a choice between imported Japanese electronics and a domestic product, increasingly turned to Samsung. The success marked a turning point. Samsung rapidly expanded its product lineup to include refrigerators, air conditioners, calculators, and color televisions. Its dominance in consumer electronics was reinforced by bold moves like acquiring a 50% stake in Korea Semiconductor, giving Samsung crucial access to component manufacturing. By 1978, Samsung had produced its 5 millionth television set, a symbolic and strategic milestone. As Samsung Electronics scaled up, the rest of the Samsung Group did not sit idle. Samsung Heavy Industries became one of the world's largest shipbuilders by 1974, and Samsung Electronics America was established to break into the competitive U.S. market. The Suwon R&D Center opened in the late 1970s, signaling Samsung's commitment not just to manufacturing, but to innovation. Lee Byung-chul was no longer just a businessman. He was a national industrialist. His influence extended beyond Samsung. As chairman of the Federation of Korean Industries, he held sway over government policy, alongside leaders from LG and other chaebols. Samsung's success wasn't just corporate. It was woven into the economic fabric of South Korea itself. But this rise was not without controversy. The chaebol system concentrated immense power in the hands of a few families. And as Samsung expanded into banking, insurance, and retail, critics questioned how much influence was too much. Still, Samsung pressed forward. Its next frontier: telecommunications. By the early 1980s, Samsung was no longer just a Korean success story. It was an emerging global force. In 1980, Samsung made a decisive entry into the telecommunications hardware sector with the acquisition of Hanguk Gyeongjitongsan. Starting with telephone switchboards, it evolved into manufacturing fax machines, telephone systems, and eventually, mobile phones. But in 1987, a profound transition occurred. Lee Byung-chul died a natural death, bringing an end to an era defined by unrelenting ambition and strategic foresight. The reins passed to his third son, Lee Kun-hee, the man groomed for leadership but faced with a colossal challenge, taking Samsung into the modern age of globalization and consumer technology. At first, things looked shaky. Samsung's early mobile phones were widely criticized for poor performance and reliability. The market was already dominated by giants like Motorola, which held 60% of Korea's mobile market at the time. Samsung had only managed a meager 10%. The management even considered pulling out of the mobile sector altogether. Then came 1995, a pivotal year. Lee Kun-hee made a radical decision to pivot the company's focus toward cutting-edge, high-quality technology. Under his leadership, Samsung undertook a bold restructuring, abandoning low-margin businesses and doubling down on innovation. Lee famously instructed executives to change everything except your wife and children. The results were astonishing. Samsung outpaced rivals like Sony, launching breakthrough devices like the Galaxy series. In 2010, the first Samsung Galaxy S hit the market, impressing consumers with its Super AMOLED screen. Although not perfect, early models had GPS issues. It marked the beginning of Samsung's smartphone ascendancy. By 2014, with the Galaxy Note Edge's curved display, Samsung had solidified its reputation as an innovator. It wasn't just competing, it was leading. Products like the Galaxy S8, S9, and the Galaxy Tab series pushed the envelope in design and functionality. Yet, Lee Kun-hee's reign wasn't without scandal. Health issues and legal troubles involving his son, Lee Jae-yong, would cast long shadows. In a rare admission, the family pledged not to pass managerial control to the next generation, marking the beginning of a slow but symbolic departure from traditional chaebol governance. Despite controversies, Samsung's foundation, laid by a noodle trader with a vision, remained firm. The company had become a symbol of South Korea's transformation from war-torn nation to technological powerhouse. Today, Samsung stands as one of the largest and most influential technology companies in the world. Headquartered in South Korea, it operates across a vast spectrum, from smartphones and semiconductors to shipbuilding and artificial intelligence. Following the death of Lee Kun-hee in 2020, leadership passed to his son, Lee Jae-yong, whose succession has been complicated by legal controversies and reform pressures. Despite setbacks, Samsung continues to invest heavily in future technologies. With ambitious plans to lead in AI, 5G, and chip production, the company is poised to remain a central player in global innovation. Its commitment to cutting-edge design, as seen in foldable phones and smart devices, reflects a legacy that refuses to rest. Samsung is no longer just a brand. It's an institution that helped define modern Korea.